But yeah, the people that, the idea behind the podcast itself is that we're really trying to help amplify the voices of local business owners, not-for-profits, but just people in the community in general, right? So they're not always business owners. But and just to get out there and have people kind of hear who they are a little bit more than an ad in a magazine or a social media post, and try to really help, like EOS, Dave Bortland's a great example. Really dynamic guy, interesting guy. EOS, just like you said, is an amazing system, and most, if not all, businesses could value from either using EOS, at least reading the book Traction. You know what I mean? So it's, if we can get out there and educate a handful of people, a handful of business owners, that there's this system out there that could revolutionize your business for you if you were to do the work that it takes to put it in there. So it's, we try to have people on that are doing good stuff and hopefully interesting at the same time. So
well, I'm going to make a further suggestion that not only are you you're succeeding in doing that, but you're giving these people in the community an alternative to the social media scrolling that everyone falls prey to. And I know that in many regards, for example, I think I listened to another one of your podcasts in which you were suggesting to the new business owners that were getting out there, those that felt a need that they need to immediately get their image or their brand and their company on Facebook even before they were ready for it. So many of the topics and the narratives that you're offering to anyone in the community, I think it's a great alternative than just mindlessly scrolling through the things that the algorithms want to feed us.
That they want to feed us, yeah. Well, it's, behind our company is the fact that, I truly believe that the purest path to freedom is through small business ownership and entrepreneurship, period.
No question.
Full stop. And
it's also borne out economically. Our country has been founded on the premise that the small business is the engine that fuels the growth and development.
Absolutely.
Particularly if you look back on our historical perspective, everyone that served in our original Congress were all small business people or farmers.
Yeah.
I mean, not that there was any big conglomerates at that point, but there were, the British Empire had, the East India Trading Company. There were certainly global examples of conglomerates, and that wasn't what our country was founded on.
No, it was fueled by men and women just like you and I, right?
Amen.
And so we, as a company, we want to give unwavering support to those people while they're on that path in any way that we can. So we try, this podcast is one of those formats that we do it.
Yeah.
And it's very important to me. I'm very passionate about it. I think anyone that wants the freedom that business ownership offers, I think should do it. At the same time, it's not for everybody, because there is a trade-off, as any business owner, entrepreneur will tell you. There's high levels of stress and uncertainty, and that's not for everybody. And so some people trade that stress and uncertainty for, it's funny because I think it's more of an illusion, that trade, because you don't really have certainty when you're an employee, right?
No longer, not in today's environment.
No.
Our parents had a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. I'm of the generation that my dad looked at me with a really askance look when I said I was leaving a perfectly good paying job to start my own business at 39. Mm-hmm. But he was born in 1930 and grew up during the Depression. So there was a time when if you were working for a company and you were a dedicated, loyal employee, for lack of a better term, you were almost assured a livelihood until you decided to hang it up.
Yeah, and then a pension. And
that doesn't exist. That hasn't existed for a couple of generations. So to your point earlier about the importance of celebrating it, but also, I think another important element, which your podcast and the efforts that your company are doing to help educate people, that's also part of the lifelong learning component, or the commitment to continuous improvement that many leaders make. And I was blessed to have that opportunity to make that commitment, or have it presented to me at an early stage in my life. And so I've been dedicated to that myself. And so, anytime that I can pay it tune in and pay attention to something that helps me improve and grow, both either individually, professionally, spiritually, who knows, what we take in terms of our fulfillment out of things that matter. So anyway, I think there's a multiple dimensions, Michael, that you're hitting people.
Well, I mean, and listen, I think the acquisition of skills is a moral imperative. Like, I think it's wild to me, especially in today's day and age, when you can get on YouTube University and learn anything. Anything. You know what I mean? And it is wild to me that more people are not investing in themselves to acquire new skills. Like, I'm like, one of the windows I have up on my thing right now is so we did a podcast on blue collar startup with a guy that founded the RV Technical Institute out in Indiana.
Okay.
And so
I've driven by those huge
huge
lots.
It's wild, right? And
not many people know this. Most of the staff in those production facilities are Amish.
Oh, no kidding. I did not know that.
Yep.
Well,
little fun fact. We spent my wife and I family. We spent 30 some odd years in southern Michigan, so that's really close to Indiana border.
Well, so he offered me the online program. He's like, "You want to go through the program?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I want to go." So I'm becoming a level 1 and level 2 certified
awesome.
RV tech. But not like I'm going to do anything with it. But maybe I will. I don't know. But at the same time, it's just acquisition of skills, man. Like, there's so much information out there. It's mind-boggling to me that people don't take advantage and don't continually learn more stuff.
Well, I think I couldn't agree with you more. I do believe it's also a really necessary component to keeping your mental acuity and agility. When the pandemic hit and right after our business failed, after 24 years, I needed something to dive into personally.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and I figured what would be the most challenging thing that I could do. And I had an unchecked box in my, form of life, so to speak, because I kind of never did get the final 16 hours from my bachelor's degree, which was a big regret. So instead I applied to Oxford University and on a whim, and get blown away by being accepted, and then get in and graduate from a program at 65 years of age. So were you
able to use your previous schooling? Was it still valid?
I mean, you never lose your credits. I mean, from 1975 to 1979, I earned those credits at St. Bonaventure University. So
I'm in a similar boat. I'm 5 credits away from my degree. So that was 25 years ago.
They're all still good.
And I think about it every once in a while. I'm like, maybe I should just take those classes and check that box off.
Or, we have resources. What first got me back into that was, believe it or not, at the time, it was Empire State College.
Okay.
Which is now Empire State University, and it's part of the SUNY system. And I can remember taking, with an MS-DOS computer, taking a constitutional law course online.
That's wild.
And that was my first foray back into higher education after having, left with 16 hours left on the table. That was a regret. But to your point earlier, keeping the mind active and giving ourselves the chance to continuously learn, pick up new skills. In today's environment, and it's as crazy as it is, we need as many skills as we can.
Yeah. Because
artificial intelligence is going to start replacing a lot of that stuff.
A lot of those jobs. So get some new skills, everybody. We talk about blue collar all the time, but 60% of the trades are going to age out in the next decade. 60%. With all the boomers retiring and leaving the workforce, they're just aging out, and it's leaving a huge gap, which means huge opportunity. And that's going to be one of the last sectors that's invaded by AI. So when all the white collar jobs go away.
Well, it's a profound need right now. And it's a perfect segue into what I've been doing part-time for the last 18 months with SUNY Adirondack and being their employer engagement leader.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing from, or what I've heard from a number of our constituent partners out in the private and nonprofit and the public sector, and the leaders that I've engaged with are telling me very clearly that it's the trades. It's the trades.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, it's the trades.
Yeah.
And not that they're devaluing or in any way, shape, or fashion minimizing the importance of that traditional liberal arts and or two-year education. There's still a very definitive spot, and it fits many people and their needs, or young people or people of all ages, doesn't matter. Yet we as higher educational institutions are challenged to be responsive to what the workforce needs are in all of our communities. And the message that I've heard pretty resoundingly has been, help us focus, help us pivot into some of these trades, because there's some profound needs, whether it's HVAC technicians, and we've done boot camps at SUNY Adirondack that have been very successful in that regard. And we're exploring some of the other trades, including maybe an electrical technician opportunity, and to kind of find ways to really be of value to the community.
Yeah. I noticed that they've been adding more trades programs over at I still call it ACC from when I went there. But I did notice that they were doing more trades-based programs. Obviously, HVCC, we call them on the Blue Collar Startup podcast, we call them the Blue Collar College, because they got a ton of trades programs. But
they have been an exceptional leader, and they've taken what they've had as a real skill set advantage in the community, particularly when it came to the growth and development of some of the semiconductor companies in and around the Malta area. They've really gotten on that horse and ridden it, and it's to their credit. And so I think that what we at SUNY Adirondack have to do is to be mindful of where our strengths and where our weaknesses are, and to make those strategic pivots to where we need to. And there are some that we have yet to execute that we've identified, I think, or we're in the process of identifying. I know the college is excited right now. There's been a recent transition from an outgoing administration into a new one, and I think anytime that happens, whether it's at a college or at a company or at any institution of any significance in a community that has constituent partners, that's an opportunity and an exciting opportunity. So with the new president coming in, I think there's good things on the horizon for SUNY Adirondack's ability to be a workforce development partner. Yeah,
and they've got a pretty solid ag program, don't they?
We do. In fact, the farm is one of my favorite spots up there, Michael. I mean, not as you gave me the opportunity of where we would meet. As soon as you said, if you want to come out to the farm, all you had to do is say farm, and I'm here. But our ag program has been great. We've had some grant activity in the last few years, particularly on the cannabis side. But that's not been the focus of our ag program. It really has been the growth and development of sustainable farming, and some of the vegetables and the program that our farm manager Tommy Donnelly, he works in coordination with our continuing education department. They've done a great job there, and quite frankly, between you and me, I think there's a lot of future potential right there at the farm, at the college, for future growth and bigger development there.
Well, we've got such a huge movement in we'll say the homesteading community, where there's more and more and more people want to grow their own food, or they at least want to know where their food's coming from. So that's creating opportunity for homesteaders to come into the market. And then it's also creating opportunities for homesteaders to actually turn into working farms. And it's really cool to watch and see it all kind of happen and grow. And if we can just, get the USDA to get out of the way a little bit and stop over-regulating.
Wave that magic wand.
I know, not to pull you into a political conversation, but it's just literally the barriers right now that small farms across the United States are seeing, and homesteaders see with turning what they're doing into a business. It really does lie mostly with the USDA. The barriers are silly.
Well, I can tell you from experience, 24 years in making alcohol. So
which we're going to talk about, because you've got an interesting background. So
we do. But when you're dealing 24 years with alcoholic beverages, you're first and foremost, you're getting your brewer's permit from at the time it was the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Now it's called the Tax and Trade Bureau. but it's a federal agency. After you go through the hoops that they present to you, then you're going through your state regs, whatever state you happen to be in. And then, of course, whatever state that you want to register your products and to sell your products into, they too will have their own state regulations. So I can tell you without hesitation that the federal and state agencies can and often do represent a huge challenge to the small, whether it's the small farmer, the small homesteader, the small brewer, the small winemaker, the small cider maker, the distiller, anyone that's trying to do something sustainably agriculturally out there, or let's just say in a small business in that kind of environment. On the flip side of that, Michael, and I believe this to be true, there will, at least from my own experience, my dad used to always say, you'll always be able to attract more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. If you go into those relationships that can be very problematic, state agencies, state regulators, federal regulators, right? These are people that can be described in many different ways, and most of those descriptions are not very flattering.
Right. Not usually when I'm describing.
Yet, I can tell you with a great amount of appreciation that I've had great success in just being authentic and transparent, and even in those circumstances, you still run into the challenging and the impediments and the rules and the regs that just you can't get around. But I've also found that there are actual human beings sitting in those roles that want to see, in many regards, the small business person succeed.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think some of the people are great.
Yes.
But the organizations, the bureaucracy of it all, it's a beast. It's a beast. And it's very challenging for the small farmer, the small brewer, or whatever. Although I will say New York State has gotten better. Especially when it comes to the brewing. I mean, the farm brewery and
they got a lot of things right when they changed legislatively a number of years ago. And among the things they got right legislatively, in my opinion. Now, for years I worked as in addition to being one of the first board members on the Michigan Brewers Guild, I was its second president, and then I did legislative affairs for 15 years for the guild. So for me and for us, we had to change the regulative environment and the law in Michigan, just as brewers needed to do that here.
Yeah.
And so what they did in New York, they got a lot of things right when they changed legislatively, and we paid attention to that in Michigan.
So I want to talk about your career in the brew business, but let's back up further. So now, we've had, I don't know, maybe half a dozen conversations over the last couple of years. I met you. We were both involved in a project we won't talk about.
Okay.
But,
you know what? Admittedly, and I don't know that this will disqualify, but back in the 70s, before I really got straight, I did an awful lot of psychedelics. And I thought that night, one of those psychedelic experiences was kicking in again.
That night we met? Yeah. that was pretty wild.
Sorry.
But you were in the Army?
I was in the Army ROTC, yes,
Okay.
and I served briefly as a reserve officer.
Okay.
So yes,
okay.
Yes.
Our conversation just the other day, you mentioned a little bit about that. We were talking about Ranger School.
Oh God. Yeah, and I think what brought it up is that you yourself, I can tell, are challenging yourself physically and in a number of different ways.
Oh yeah.
That was a great experience for me, and it helped form the core of my leadership, what I call my core.
Yeah.
And so that's when I noticed, and I saw you in the mud, it brought back, some painful PTSD for me.
I bet.
But I'm very privileged to have been subjected to advanced summer camp at Fort Bragg in 1978, and then crazy enough to get selected to go to the combined Ranger School, Airborne School at Fort Benning, and
what was that like?
That was intense. That's to this day, and even that we as cadets got a condensed version of the 6-week program, the phases, the standards of the 75th Ranger Regiment have never been compromised. Those guys are incredible. They're the sharp, pointy edge of the spear for our country, and I'm proud to be able to call myself one of those brothers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think about that stuff. I'm like, I wonder if I could even make it partway through that kind of, like, from people that have been through it and I've talked to, it sounds just grueling.
Well, I think as we've talked before, it's a lot of it is mental.
Yeah.
But also it's a physical and mental, and really determines whether you're a team player or not.
Yeah.
If you're a loner, if this separates a lot of the chafe. I think our attrition rate, it continues to stay to be 50%. So,
oh, no kidding.
So, if your class is 25, typically there'll be 8 to 10 or 12 people that get through and get to graduation.
That's wild. What do you think the hardest part was?
Derby phase.
What is that?
Derby Queen. The Derby Queen is just the most grueling. It's a 1 mile. It's a 1 linear mile of 20. God, what is it? 26 different obstacles. Okay. You can look them up. In today's environment, it hasn't changed. That Derby, they bus you over to camp. I forget the name of the camp now. At any rate, the Derby phase is, if you can make it through Derby phase, 5 at least 50% of everybody's dropped. Because of that. Because of the Derby phase.
How long does it take you to get through that phase?
That's just, our phase of that was 1 week, because we had a condensed version.
They hammer you on that course every day, or?
No, that was the whole week. It's a 2-week course, but it's a 1 week of really just hell of physical, lot of sleep deprivation. But that course, I think I told you, those non-commissioned officers back in the 70s were coming back from Nam. So those guys, what you were doing in between the grueling exercises in between each obstacle is meant to just push you to the limit.
That sleep deprivation, I can't do it, man. I fall apart without sleep. And I don't know what sleep is for most people, but if I get 5 solid hours of sleep, I'm pretty good.
Yep.
But back when I used to do snow removal, and we'd be doing 3 days behind the steering wheel kind of deal and not sleeping, maybe getting an hour's of sleep, I would completely fall apart. You didn't want to be around me. I just can't think, can't function, can't communicate. I hear about guys going through basic and military training, and I'm just like, how the hell do you do that, man?
Well, admittedly, it's a lot easier when you're younger. Yeah.
I know.
I don't know that I could do that today. And admittedly, today, my wife will tell you, if I wake up in the middle of the night right now, whether this is a PTSD impact that's lingered, sorry, just hit you again.
Sorry.
Over the years of getting woken up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when you think it's going to be a 4 a.m. wake up, or getting woken up at 1, or just getting to sleep, those kinds of things. That'd
be the worst. You just hit that sweet spot of sleep and someone's screaming at you to wake up.
Well, but again, Michael, the whole purpose is to lean on the guy to your left, or the person to your left or to your right.
Yeah.
And you get through it together, and that's how the regiment winnows out the chaff from the real, the real kernels of grain.
It's fascinating. Well, and did you mention that you were a police officer?
Yeah. So,
what haven't you done, Tim?
I don't think that I haven't had anything in the medical practice.
I was to say no medical training.
Well, I did get first aid training, but I did go to the Albany Police Academy after college. I had a time serving as a reserve officer, and so. The logical profession was law enforcement, and because I was attached to a military police unit.
Yeah.
And so I started out working for the village of South Glens Falls as a part-time patrolman, and then also for the village of Fort Edward as a part-time patrolman, until I made the first political move of my life when I got called by the sheriff of Saratoga County at the time, who I think is still with us, so maybe he should remain nameless. But
Okay.
if anybody that's been around long enough to know that there was only one previous sheriff before the one that's currently in, and he was around for 40 years, I think. Anyways, called me up and wanted me to come to work for the department, but because I was a registered independent, I needed to change that to an R.
Wow.
In order to come to work for the Saratoga County Sheriff's Department.
Interesting.
So I did. Not because of my politics, but because I wanted the job with the Sheriff's Department. And I actually, that too was again another core part of the development of me and my leadership commitment over the early part of my career, and that time was very meaningful to me. I grew up a lot, needed to, quite frankly, at that time of my life. I was certainly less wise, less temperate in many regards, and was a part of the first canine team that they had assembled at the department. So that's why I've always had dogs, ever since my time at the Sheriff's Department.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in the beer business?
Well, okay, so I left the Sheriff's Department and then went to work. I took a summer off and actually played a season with the Glens Falls Green Jackets, and that was fun. I had the time of my life.
Were you a wideout?
No, I was a defensive back.
Defensive back? Okay.
Yeah. And that was fun. That was another physical challenge. I had just been coming off of when you come through a summer of being down at Fort Bragg and Fort Benning, and then recently, you're just 24, 25, 26 years old. That's the time at your physical best. Yeah. So I took a shot and played a season with the Green Jackets, and I had the time of my life. Again, it was team, and it was team building, and all the things that core leadership principles that I grew quite fond of from the military and law enforcement kind of extended over for a season, and we had a run in a championship game but lost it. So, but that was a great experience, and then having met a few people that I played with on the team. They had worked for a local company called Albany Engineered Systems, and they were a part of Albany International out of Albany, New York, a paper industry supplier. And so I went to work for them. And in 1983, I relocated down to Augusta, Georgia, became a field service technician for them, and was responsible for about 100 paper mills traveling throughout the whole Southeast. So it was from Virginia to northern Florida and eastern Tennessee and northeastern Alabama. I had every paper mill in between. So I was on the road a lot, and I spent about 10 years with that company, got recruited by another company based out of the Midwest. They made end-face engineered mechanical seals, again for process industries, including pulp and paper. That's what brought me to the Midwest. And then after about a year of working with that company, they had an opportunity for me to expand with them globally. So we did some work where we expanded their business into Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and then Western Europe. So I had a chance to do some globetrotting with them, which was great, in market development with them. And along the way, I developed an enthusiasm. Even before I kind of got recruited by that company, Michael, I had become interested in locally crafted beer. In fact, a buddy of mine who was a very successful restaurateur back at that time, Shane Newell. Shane owned the grist mill up in Warrensburg. And he and I were good friends, and we had talked about potentially opening up a brew pub in Saratoga Springs. That would have been cool if we could have gotten that done back in the 1989, 90. We were talking about that before I moved with the family to Michigan. At any rate, I'd had an interest in it. And so when I started traveling all throughout the U.S. and globally, my hobby, wherever I was traveling, and I was spending 2 weeks a month away from my family, was visiting the local breweries. And I believed at the time that I was working to put myself in a position to be the next director or the vice president of international sales and marketing for this company, this private company that I'd been working with for the last 3.5 years, privately held. They were about $200 million a year company back then. So not too terribly big, but not small.
I mean, not too shabby.
Yeah. And I had demonstrated an ability, I think, and sealed some pretty big deals for these guys and brought some projects across the finish line where I walked in to the owner's office when I found out that the VP of International was moving on. And I said, you don't even have to search for your replacement on that position because I'm your man. And he looked right at me, Michael, and I could tell that there was something that was going on that he wasn't going to tell me. Mm-hmm. And he even looked at me and he said, Tim, under normal circumstances, I would be delighted to figure out how to say yes to that, but I can't. And I can't tell you why I can't.
Interesting.
Well, I went on to read between the lines, and I could tell that what was going on is that he was engaged in negotiations to sell the company at that time. And so what I did was, in the next 4 to 5 weeks, I commiserated with a couple of key buddies of mine, one of which was a CPA, and I proceeded to put a business plan together, and as my wife said, put in my notice with the company and said, guys, we've got some projects here that I'm still working on that I don't want to leave you on, but in 6 months I'm going to leave. I mean, you can tell me to be gone today, and I'll be gone today, but I'm going to leave and I'm going to start a brewery. And so, one of the things that
What year was this?
This was in 1994.
Okay, so this was really, like, starting a brewery in 1994 was no small feat.
95 is when when I left the company.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was well before the boom of the huge, most recent boom. But you know what? One of the small, little, insignificant things that many people, when I think about this, I'm proudest of, Michael, is that the work that we were doing at the time for that company that I was doing, the owner, my bosses, we liked each other enough, and there was enough of a value proposition there that, who in today's day and age, first of all, gives 6 months worth of notice,
right?
But whoever lets somebody work 6 months, it just doesn't exist anymore today, and I'm proud of that because I wanted to make sure that the projects that we had going, we had the chance to get them across the finish line, and quite frankly, it was going to take me that long before I could do what we had to do, and that was a very ambitious to register a Michigan-only stock offering to raise the capital for this, and that was a very overly ambitious.
That's how you funded the brewery?
That's how we got it going.
See, this is what I love about entrepreneurs. The problem solving combined with the creativity of I want to do something, but I don't really have the money to do it. So how can I make this happen? You see it time and time and time again. And sometimes everybody hears about it because it's just so disruptive to the market. And so, but there's so many times that it happens and people don't hear about it like that. Like, I've got this problem. I need to get money to open this brewery. How am I going to do it? And then you come up with a Michigan-only stock option. I'm going to sell stocks in my company before it even exists.
And we were the first ever Michigan corporation to sell an equity and in a company that had not had 1 day of operation.
Right. You have no revenue to report. You have nothing.
And here's where I really got my.
You must be really good at sales, Tim.
That's maybe, well, yeah. I guess that's been a strength, thankfully, over the years. But I should say, And going back to my comment earlier about state regulators, right? So there was one of my first engagements. Corporations and Securities Bureau, State of Michigan. 3 people. 1 senior examiner, 1 administrative assistant, and 1 Corporations and Securities Bureau director. Now, there's not many Michigan-only stock registrations, and there certainly wasn't one from a guy that's living in Kalamazoo, Michigan, trying to build a brewery in Battle Creek, who's never made a beer in his life, never run a company in his life. He's currently sounding like a pretty well-researched sales guy.
Right. Yeah.
And we had to build a I had to build a relationship with this guy.
What am I doing?
And this department. And that was our first problem that we had to the first hurdle to get over, the first problem solve. So to your point, yes, that was the first opportunity. And I think every entrepreneur has experienced this. That's my first example. But when we built the second brewery in Kalamazoo, we had the same kind of but-for component.
Yeah.
And so you have to solve that problem, and we did that one differently. But every entrepreneur knows and has got a different story that resonates on that. I think in that subject.
How much capital did you have to raise?
First project, the first brewery, Arcadia Brewing, Battle Creek, was a total capitalization of $1.3 million.
Wow, that's a lot of money in 1995.
So let me tell you how it went, because I think not every, but many success stories also come with a lot of failures. Mm-hmm. And if you don't talk about failures authentically and transparently, then you're kind of sugarcoating what the real world. It's not realistic. So I had a very ambitious, we got that offering, that prospectus across the finish line with the state of Michigan. And I was fighting with these guys tooth and nail, because if you read the disclaimers, the first page and a half of that stock offering basically said, you've got to be freaking out of your mind to send this guy any money. If you value anything that you send this guy, consider it gone. There's no promise of a dividend. He's never made a beer in his life. There's no evidence that he can run a company. He doesn't even have any company infrastructure. He has no brewing equipment. He has nothing. He has no promise. Are you crazy? Keep your money. Essentially that kind of stuff.
So you sold 1.3 shares at $1 a share?
What I did, it was $1.10 a share.
Okay.
A minimum subscription was 500 shares.
Okay.
Right? And I had to come up with, my total was 1.3 million. In order to break escrow, right, I needed $750,000.
That is wild.
I came up $389,000 short.
Okay.
So it's all sitting there in an escrow account at a bank. And I'm looking at my wife and going, we've kind of put everything. I had to, $75,000, $80,000, $100,000, whatever we had in 401k, all in. I mean, most entrepreneurs will tell you your own money goes. That's the first one in the pot. And we were walking around the little reservoir close to our house and having one of those, life moments like, well, what'd you figure we were going to do next after you kind of pissed that pot away, so to speak? Sorry for the language.
Oh, that's all right.
And, and I'm a spiritual guy, so I don't mind saying that my faith kept me going. And I just had a feeling that this wasn't the end of the story. The next day, I got a call from one of our investors, one of the 400 people that ponied up, at least the minimum, right? So, and this particular gentleman, who has now become a lifelong friend, was a senior officer at Kellogg Company, which is the other company in Battle Creek, Michigan, right? And he called me up and he said, "How's your project coming?" I said, "It's dead. I came about half. I didn't even come close." He said, "Well, man, you did something. I mean, you raised, almost $400,000.
Yeah, that $500 increments. That is a lot of money."
And I went around. I did this travel and roadshow at different places throughout the state of Michigan. So I had little pockets of shareholders in Detroit and Grand Rapids, and figured if I could, get these people and give them no promise of any return on their investment, but some special deals on the beer. Every time they came into the brewery, they got 10% off. I mean, there was a number of things that they could get their value back on. But so I did have that. And this guy said, "Well, you know what? I'm on the board of the local economic development organization in Battle Creek. We ought to talk to these guys and see if they can figure out a way to help, because geez, if there's a way to hang on to that equity, maybe you could get some, economic development funding or loans or something like that. One thing led to another. Because of that relationship that we had built with the regulators in Lansing from the Corporations and Securities Bureau, despite the fact that by law, we were required to, within 30 days, give everyone their money back by a certified check. I had 30 days to put a plan B together. Mm-hmm. And in that 30 days, we secured an economic development loan from the local economic development organization, and they introduced us to, and they in turn subordinated their position on that loan to a commercial lender.
Wow.
Who provided us with, at the time, it was a $400,000 SBA loan.
Wow.
So we went back to the Corporations and Securities Bureau and said, look, we failed. Can we come back for a second round too? And by state law, we couldn't do it. However, the Corporations and Securities Bureau director, again, I emphasize this because it wasn't anything that I did special, but I'm talking about people building relationships with the folks that matter in your particular field or with what you're trying to do, and do it in an authentic, transparent way. I went back to him and I said, look, I've got the funding. If I can just go back to these same people that already invested and show them a plan B, I think they'll invest. He gave us a director's exemption. And he said, put the plan B together, write the prospectus with senior examiner J. It's his first name. We'll call him J. Yeah. God rest his soul. I know the guy passed. And you're only allowed, you can't go advertising it. You can't go on radio ads like you were before. You can't do the tombstone ads for the stock in the newspapers. You can only send this letter and this Plan B prospectus out to the people who invested. I stretched the rules a little bit on that one.
Benders. We call those benders.
We bent them. But, again, having to hit curveballs, Michael, and every entrepreneur that's listening to this can think of their own story about why and how they had to do the same thing. So that's how we got it started.
So you went back to the original investors, and
I needed to get $350 out of the $400,000 that I had originally.
So you just needed everybody to double their investment.
I originally had about $400,000 plus dollars in funds. Yeah. And on this Plan B, but I needed $800,000 in that first, almost $800,000 just to clear escrow. Yeah. In this Plan B, I needed $350,000, and we got $365,000.
Wow. Got more than you needed.
$15,000. Man, I wish I had that back.
It's interesting.
So that's how we got it going. That was 1996 in a building that was the first Chevrolet dealership in downtown Battle Creek.
So what it sounds to me you're saying, though, is that you went to these people and you gave them the belief that you were going to be
worth it. This project's worth it.
Yeah.
We were talking about, and I do believe this. I know this sounds maybe like it's putting my nose up in the air, but we were talking to them about jobs. We were talking to them about a blighted section of downtown Battle Creek that needed revitalization, and we became an anchor part of that. Yeah. And despite the fact that ultimately, after 18 years, we couldn't make it work in that space anymore, and we had to leave Battle Creek, you can't take away the collateral economic and social and cultural impact of what a single spark can represent when it comes to a small business, and particularly in a small community.
It's the power of belief and all of this stuff, and especially when it comes to owning your own business, and especially when you're launching something that doesn't exist. I think the power of belief that you have to have in yourself and your idea, and then being able to convey that idea. Because that was like when we launched Buy Local 4 years ago, that was one of the things where I was going to people, we had nothing. We didn't have a newspaper. We didn't have a website. We had nothing. And I'm trying to sell people a $500 a month ad program for community partners. Thank you very much for those of you that said yes to that. But again, like I truly believed in what we were doing and believed that it's going to be successful and it was going to be worth it to them. And I had to impart that belief to them. And we wouldn't have been able to do it if it wasn't for the 8 or 9 local businesses that decided to part with that money based on the idea. Like, it's amazing.
Well, you're a passionate person and you're authentic, Michael, and that comes through. And it's not just in words, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what, if you ask me, why did people want to help us? Mm-hmm. And I think it was because there was an authentic passion that I was bringing to the table.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, this guy's just not looking to make money. He wants to do something that's meaningful, just like you were doing something. The last thing on your agenda, I need to make enough money to pay the bills.
Yeah.
But this is not a way to get rich. If there's a way to get rich, this ain't. You want to make a small fortune, start out with a big one in the beer business.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Particularly in today's environment, and the same can be said of a number of other businesses, right? So I think it's important to acknowledge and to recognize that, authentic passion for what you believe in, and it's likely its values and principles and delivering a quality level of service. And oh, by the way, you get paid to do that.
Yep.
And putting the money and the dollars in its rightful place in the value chain, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And it just popped in my brain. I got to give a shout out to Bob Fitch from State Farm, actually, Bob, because Bob was the first person that said yes, and almost without hesitation. Like, he sat down with me based on our personal relationship. We've known each other for years. I told him about the idea behind buying local. At the time, it was Glens Falls Business Report. And he was just like, yeah, let's do it, man. I love it.
Yeah.
And I definitely was walking on whatever the saying is when you're super excited about something, walking on water. I don't know. I was like, I'm not walking on water, but I just, well,
you're walking on air.
Walking on the clouds. Yeah.
And you're excited because you're fueled by that. And quite honestly, you need that energy when you're trying to pull this together, because, a lot of people talk about the sexy, cool parts of being an entrepreneur. Well, there's
another side to it.
There's a dark side, right? And I can tell you that the dark side is there no matter what the industry. Mm-hmm. And it comes with a responsibility, and sometimes that the weight is heavy, particularly if there's people whose livelihoods are depending upon you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you can't minimize that responsibility. And that's why I celebrate small businesses. I really want to support leaders who recognize the value of the small business in any community, whether it's a small community or the bigger community of the state, even on a federal level. And not to get too far into the politics, but anything that doesn't support the small business community. And a lot of what's happened over the last 7 months has, in my opinion, put an awful lot of burden on the small businesses, and I hope they've got the resiliency that they can hang in there.
Yeah, it's been a tough 5 years for small businesses. I know a lot of them didn't make it through the pandemic. Personally, I know friends that had businesses that didn't survive the shutdowns, and
well, ours was a consequence, back in, but we were a little bit underwater, a lot underwater as it would relate to the industry, because there's it was such a proliferation of breweries over the last several years. I think there's close to more than 9,000 breweries today, and there was 900, I think, or less than 900 when we got
when you got into it.
So, that notwithstanding, the anytime you have to staff a business and you have a number of different unfilled spots and seats on your team, you're under duress, and you've got a number of your team shouldering a heavier burden than they ordinarily do, and that's always a challenge, and it weighs heavily on people that care about their team.
Yeah, it's not easy. So you guys moved out of Battle Creek?
Well, we lived in Michigan, and when Arcadia Brewing shut down in 2019, we we stayed in Michigan through the pandemic, and my mom and dad, where I grew up in the town of Moreau, on Feeder Dam Road, they were hitting their 90s, and being an only child, it was a good time for my wife and I to move back home and to assist their transition from independent living to the next stage. And my dad passed a year ago January, and we got him across the finish line in the home that he built with his father in 1952 and lived in with my mother for 70 some odd years. And and that's the home that I grew up in, and my mom is still there. So yeah, that's what brought us back.
Yeah.
And then, as we were talking earlier, I think before we put on the headphones, me being bored is not a good thing for the home life or anybody around me. So despite the fact that, helping mom and dad, took up some time, I needed to do something. And when I was back in Michigan, those 24 years in the beer business, I was very grateful and blessed to have been asked and participated in a number of different boards, nonprofit boards, but also two of the local colleges. Western Michigan University, I was on their food marketing advisory board. And then I was also on the first board of the sustainable brewing program at Kalamazoo Valley Community College, and their combined program, sustainable brewing program with Western Michigan University. So when I came back here to upstate New York, Michael, it just felt natural for me to reach out to SUNY Adirondack. I'd seen a wonderful letter to the editor that Chris Duffy penned almost 2 years ago now, I think. Really, she was referring to the role that the college plays in continuing an ongoing education and that commitment to lifelong learning, if you will, that is a great reminder, I think, for every community. And I just like the way that she articulated the importance of the college's role. So I reached out. I sent her a letter via email. She connected me internally with one of her VPs. And a month and a half later, I see a job posting that I think I told you this when I saw it. I showed this LinkedIn posting to my wife, who couldn't wait for me to get this, whatever the next thing was going to be. And she looked at this and she said, she read the job description. She said, "Oh my God, you do this for free. So just please do it."
Yeah.
And so, that's what I've been doing for the last 18 months. So sadly, that comes to an end for me here on the first. But with any change, it's an exciting opportunity for me, because I'm not sure what's next. And
that's what I was going to ask you. So what are you going to do next after SUNY Adirondack?
I keep looking for every hot dog cart or barbecue rig that's for sale whenever I'm driving by. Who knows? No, we had both of those when we were in the beer business, so they were fun. But no, I'm not sure yet, and that's kind of exciting. I'm gonna take some time here in August and do a little reflection. And in September, we've got some travel planned, and in early October. So I'm gonna try to figure out what's next, what the next chapter of Tim's why is.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something, Michael. I've had a lot of really great, meaningful conversations with a number of the area leaders, basically asking them for some feedback or some final thoughts on what the college can do, or what role we at the college can fill for them.
Yeah.
And I'm really encouraged by the continuing confidence that the area leaders have in the college, and despite the fact that we have a lot of growth and development opportunity and potential that's yet unfulfilled for us, and our ability to really connect and be an engaged partner with our constituent counties, and that's Warren County, Washington County, and Northern Saratoga County. There's a lot of room for us to improve. And despite the fact that I may not be there moving forward, the college under its new leadership, I think, is going to be committed to making the necessary improvements internally, just as we're asking the community to continue to support us and support the college. And so I'm encouraged by what its role will continue to be, and hopefully lifting up the whole area. But whatever's next for me, I don't know. It's going to be fun though.
Yeah.
I've got there's too much. there's too much of a past experience for me that I don't want to. I want to share as much of it as I can with as many people as I can.
Yeah. Not going to start a brewery?
Been there, done that. There's enough.
Looking for something new.
Yeah. It's something new.
Something new.
Yeah. Or who knows? I'm the door's open, wide open.
Yeah. I mean, that is an exciting time in life, though, when you're not sure what's in front of you. I always found this to be exciting for me and I know people talk about like the unknown and not being secure in what's going to happen next, and it can be a scary thing. And I'm always like, I don't know, man. It sounds really exciting to me.
Well, and it depends on how you're wired. I can tell you we all have different. We're wired differently. I have a life partner. My wife, she's awesome, but she's less happy with, she wants to know that Tim's gonna stay semi-retired because she, any full-time 8-10 hours a day at Tim. No, she doesn't want any part of that.
Yeah.
But again, for me, I know that whatever's next, it'll be right at the right time and it'll be the right opportunity.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Probably a perfect time to
wrap this up.
To wrap it up, yeah.
Yeah. Under what category does this discussion go with all the great topics?
Very interesting category.
You're being very kind, Michael.
No, not at all. Like I said, I was really excited to have you come in. We have had a few conversations, but it's always at like an event or there's other things going on.
Right.
And so we haven't really been able to get into any of the details. And I mean, I could probably spend another 4 hours asking you about the 20 years in the brew business?
24 years.
24 years?
Yeah. And making wood-fired pizza and authentic barbecue.
Yeah, and it's funny because I remember you were telling me, because obviously, we raise pigs here.
Oh, I did not. Hey,
I'll take you out.
Can I get a quick tour?
Yeah,
before?
we'll do a farm tour afterwards.
Awesome. I was kind of counting on that.
I remember the story you told me, though, about one of the local pig farmers coming and getting Brewers grains from you and then giving you a pig, and you guys had a pig roast at the brewery.
So I like telling stories. So
we got nothing but time.
You're perfect.
We're going to keep going.
All right. So I like to particularly, I think stories have great impact when it comes to trying to, convey a message, so to speak. And this goes back to one of my earlier assertions of how relationships matter, right? So we got the brewery going in 1996. And one of the things, again, you have to continuously problem solve as an entrepreneur. So we decided that we were going to be authentic in our brewing tradition. I fell in love with British beers. Okay. So authentic British ales, open fermentation. I went all the way down that rabbit hole, being somewhat of an Anglophile. And I even went and brewed 4 or 5 times over in England over the course. So we can talk about that.
Research trips.
They were joint brews. And we actually sold our beer at pubs, at the Weatherspoon pubs. Anyways, that's another story. So we're getting our first batches of beer, and all of a sudden it occurs to me, what in the hell am I going to do with this grain? Because I'm already going to have...
It's a lot of waste.
It's a lot. And I just don't want to, it's got to have some value. So do some research. And again, the internet isn't what it wasn't then, what it is today. So because I've always been hanging out with farmers most of my life because of being a duck hunter, et cetera, I go and I check with farmers and I find out that spent grain has a real definitive value as a finishing feed because it doesn't have any of the starch or carbohydrates left in it because we've washed all those out and converting them into sugar, right? But it has a high protein content. And so if you're looking to finish beef cattle, or if you're looking to finish or just provide an added nutrient source or protein source for your hogs or whatever, it's a great animal feed. So I went driving around and saw a farm that had some hogs outside of Battle Creek, stopped, like I was going to ask for permission to hunt their land, and they didn't have any water on their land.
No ducks.
No ducks. And it's interesting that I was asking for ducks before I was even asking if he was interested in any of the spent grain. Anyways, it turned into a really... a 17-year relationship. Well, not quite that. 15 years. Because
they must have loved it.
And they did. But here's where the story gets even better. When I asked these guys, okay, you're going to getting some value out of this. How much? What do you think? What's it worth to you? And so the guy, like a good farmer, he's looking at me and he says, what's it worth to you to not have to pay to get value? And he knew that I'd already done my research on that. So I said, I'll tell you what. Why don't you give me 2 hogs at the end of the year and we'll throw a barbecue? So he said, deal. We shook hands. He said, on one condition. I said, what's that? He said, we cook the hogs.
That's funny.
I said, okay.
They know how to do it, yeah.
Yeah. So full year comes around. It's June. We do Arcadia's first Blues, Brews, and Barbecue in our back parking lot. We rent the showmobile from the Kellogg Arena, which was across the street. So this is this little portable stage that you pop up, right? I got a buddy of mine in the entertainment business for the State Theater in Kalamazoo, so he sets me up with a couple of blues bands and lights and sound. I sell tickets. I've got the local beer distributor's beer trailer out there with 8 taps of our beer out there. We sold 1,200 tickets. The 2 hogs that they brought in that they cooked that were stuffed with their proprietary stuffing, we sold out in 45 minutes. We had to fire up the wood-fired pizza oven to make sure that we had enough pizza to give these folks that had bought food and beverage tickets and were out at barbecue and were all pissed off. And we sold, I think, 40 half barrels of beer that night.
Wow.
Fast forward 9 years. 8 years. On the 9th and final year that we did it, we had Tab Benoit as the blues artist. The event it got pretty costly. It was about a $25,000 to $30,000 event back then to put it on.
Oh, wow.
But we did 1,000 pounds of pork barbecue and sold 115 half barrels of beer.
Wow.
And
that's a lot of beer and pork.
And that was 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
So, again, that relationship and these guys, when we said we need 6 hogs, they only have 2 smokers. So you're always problem solving. So we had to come up with 4 more smokers, and then what a ritual to have these 2 farmers come over. And here we are with my chef's team and me, and I've got pictures of this. We're all out back mixing this stuffing and packing these 6 hogs up so that they can smoke and cook for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my story on
great story.
On Blues, Brews, and Barbecue and relationships with spent grain.
How many pounds of spent grain do you think that you guys were sending over to that farm?
Well, we had a 25-barrel system, and we averaged, I'd say, brewing on that system during our heyday, probably 4 to 5 batches a week. Mm-hmm. So that's about 1,500 pounds. They were probably getting about 8,000 to 10,000 pounds of spent grain a week.
Wow.
Yeah, 4 or 5 tons.
The cash value in grain, if you were feeding straight grain. Again, because it's not the full spectrum nutritional value. Yep. No, you got to supplement. You can't just
it's supplement, but they got a great deal.
Yeah, they did.
And so did we. And because we didn't have to pay for it to be removed. It was a sustainable practice, which we believed very, very strongly in. Yeah. And we had a great relationship. Being able to, and think of it, I'll leave you with the marketing tag. Blues, Brews, and Barbecue. Come on and eat some of this spent grain fed hog. Come on, bro. In addition to British ales and spent grain fed barbecue, come on. Yeah. If you don't want to say yes to that with Blues, with Tab Benoit out there, I have to say we did some things that I'm very proud of. In addition to winning a couple of three GABF medals and a World Beer Cup medal, so proud of the beer too.
As you should be.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Michael, you're a real gentleman. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming out, man.
Are you kidding me? I can't wait for the tour.
Oh yeah, you're gonna see Penelope, our big pig. She's out there all alone right now, waiting for her friends to show up in a couple of months.
Looking forward to it. And listen, I just want to say again, my compliments on what you're doing.
Thanks.
Your program is awesome. It's meaningful. It matters. I'm going to subscribe to both of them now, just
Good.
because not just because you had me on, but maybe in spite of the fact that you had me on. but no, it's truly I appreciate the fact of being included, and keep doing the great work that you're doing. And if there's anything I can do to help you and or your team, I'm there for you.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
Right.
Tim.
You're welcome.
And thanks, everybody, for listening. Of course, you can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, and Apple. Thanks to all of our community partners. Again, as I said earlier, without you guys, we wouldn't be here, and we really appreciate you supporting us and supporting the mission. And of course, thanks to all of our listeners and viewers. Please make sure you share the show, trying to get our rankings up there a little bit, leave a review, and keep on listening. Thanks.